Section 1. Introduction: The power hidden in simplicity. From the quote, "Control yourself, not others." There are certain truths in life that strike the soul not because they are complex, but because they are disarmingly simple. One of those truths is this: control yourself, not others. It is a sentence made of just 4 words. Yet behind these 4 words lies the entire architecture of emotional peace, personal power, and spiritual growth. This quote does not scream, it whispers. But the more you reflect on it, the more it begins to reshape how you view yourself, your relationships, and your world. We live in a world obsessed with control. Control over outcomes. Control over people. Control over how others see us, respond to us, validate us, or treat us. We are taught from a young age that influence is power, that leadership is about shaping others, and that love is about fixing or protecting the ones we care about. Somewhere in that process, we begin to confuse care with control, love with possession, and helping with managing. But here's the paradox: the more you try to control what is outside of you, the more powerless you become. And the more you turn your attention inward to your own reactions, your own choices, your own thoughts, the more powerful you grow. This shift in awareness is often the beginning of emotional maturity. It's the first doorway to peace. It's the soft but sobering realization that you were never meant to control others, only yourself. Why this quote matters so deeply today in our hyper-connected age, where every opinion is online, every relationship is under pressure, and every human flaw is magnified by expectation. Control has become both a mask and a mechanism. We try to control the way others think, feel, behave, and respond so that we can feel secure within ourselves. But this way of living is draining. It makes our happiness conditional on other people's behavior. And that is no way to live. The quote, "Control yourself, not others," cuts through this confusion like a knife. It invites you to return to the center of your being, where your real strength resides. It doesn't say ignore others or let chaos win. No. It says, take responsibility for what is yours and release what is not. This is not a passive life philosophy. It's a powerful, active form of self-leadership. What happens when you internalize this wisdom? When you begin to live by this principle, subtle but powerful changes occur within you. You stop expecting others to behave a certain way just to make you feel okay. You learn to respond instead of react. You protect your peace without manipulating others to maintain it. You start setting boundaries, not demands. You shift your emotional energy from external battles to internal strength building. People often misunderstand this quote, thinking it promotes emotional distance. In reality, it promotes emotional wisdom. It teaches that the deepest love, the highest respect, and the strongest relationships are not built on control, they are built on freedom. The pain behind the need to control. Most people don't try to control others because they are evil or selfish. They do it because they are afraid. Afraid of being hurt. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of abandonment. Afraid that if they don't control what happens, they'll fall apart inside. This fear is human. It is valid. But when left unchecked, it becomes a destructive force. Trying to control others is a way of managing that fear, but it only brings more pain. The more you tighten your grip, the more people pull away. The more you try to manage their growth, the more they resist. The more you demand love your way, the more love disappears. The healing begins when you shift from fear-based control to trust-based self-mastery. You begin to say to yourself, I will not shrink trying to control someone else's expansion. I will not lose myself trying to dictate another's choices. I will rise by mastering my own. Control of self, a return to your true power. There is nothing more empowering than realizing this: you may not control what others say, but you control what you choose to believe. You may not control how others treat you, but you control how you treat yourself and whether you stay. You may not control life's chaos, but you control whether you become part of it, or part of the peace. This is real strength. This is quiet confidence. This is the essence of true emotional freedom. The journey ahead, what this essay will explore. This first section is only the beginning. Over the course of the full essay, we will explore why we fall into the trap of trying to control others, the emotional, spiritual, and relational cost of that trap, the deep peace that comes with surrender and self-responsibility, timeless wisdom from ancient Stoic philosophers, spiritual guides, and real-life experience, practical tools to develop self-control, emotional discipline, and inner boundaries, and most importantly, how to live a life that is yours, not dictated by others, and not dependent on their behavior. Because the truth is simple and life-changing: control yourself, not others. That is where your peace begins. And that is where your true power lives. Section 2. The human need to control others, where it comes from. Understanding the root of control. Before we can free ourselves from the need to control others, we must first understand why that need arises in the first place. Control is not just a behavior, it is often a symptom, a surface-level action born out of deeper emotional and psychological patterns. Most of us don't wake up and say, "I want to control people today." Instead, we are led by our experiences, shaped by our fears, and driven by our wounds. The need to control others often emerges as a defense mechanism, born in childhood, nurtured through relationships, and reinforced by a world that tells us we are responsible for how others behave toward us. Let us break down where this behavior originates and why it becomes so deeply ingrained in our emotional framework. 1. Control as a response to fear. At the root of almost every controlling behavior is fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of rejection. Fear of betrayal. Fear of being hurt. When we don't feel emotionally safe, we begin to grasp for ways to reduce that vulnerability. Controlling others becomes an unconscious way of saying, if I can control their choices, I can prevent my pain. But this fear-driven approach backfires. Why? Because we are not protecting ourselves, we are only postponing the pain by delaying the truth. And the truth is this: no amount of control over another person can ever guarantee emotional safety. When we act from fear, we lose our ability to love with freedom. We begin to smother others instead of connect. We begin to dictate instead of support. And the deeper our fear, the more aggressive or passive-aggressive our controlling behavior becomes. 2. Control rooted in insecurity and low self-worth. Another major source of the need to control others is insecurity, especially in romantic or close relationships. When someone doesn't feel good enough inside, when they carry beliefs like, "I'm not lovable as I am. People always leave me. If I lose them, I'll lose myself," they may develop patterns of emotional dependence. This insecurity fuels control. Instead of building their own inner worth, a person may try to manage others into staying, behaving, or loving in a certain way. They don't trust that they are enough, so they try to create emotional safety by directing others their tone, their loyalty, their attention. This can show up in subtle or toxic ways. Now combine all 10 sections into one cohesive, beautifully formatted PDF or script, ready for upload. These are not the acts of an evil person. They are signs of someone whose self-worth depends on others' behavior, and who believes that control is the only way to feel secure. 3. Control as a learned behavior from childhood. Many people develop controlling tendencies because they were raised in environments where control was normalized. If you grew up with overly strict or emotionally unpredictable parents, conditional love or harsh consequences, high expectations and low emotional support, you may have learned early on that control equals survival. Children in such environments often feel powerless. To cope, they develop hyper-awareness of others' moods and behaviors. They become perfectionists, caretakers, or emotional managers. As adults, this conditioning turns into a subconscious belief: if I can keep everyone in check, I can stay safe. So control isn't always about dominance. Sometimes, it's about trying to create emotional order in a world that once felt chaotic or unsafe. But the problem is, that inner child is now running adult relationships where love requires trust, not control. 4. Control as a way to avoid uncertainty. Human beings are wired to seek certainty. Our brains are constantly trying to predict outcomes, calculate risks, and minimize emotional surprises. But life doesn't cooperate with this plan. People change. Emotions shift. Circumstances evolve. And that unpredictability can feel threatening, especially for those who crave emotional stability. So, what do? We try to control everything: conversations, timelines, feelings, reactions, to reduce uncertainty. We might try to get someone to promise they'll never leave. Constantly ask for reassurance. Overplan or overanalyze every situation. Get angry when things don't go our way. But real life is not a machine, it's a river. It flows. It moves. And control is like trying to freeze water with your hands. The more you tighten your grip, the more anxious you become. 5. The ego's role: control as an identity protector. The ego, the psychological self that wants to be in charge, hates unpredictability. It wants to define what is right and wrong, what is acceptable and unacceptable, who deserves closeness and who deserves punishment. When the ego feels threatened, it often responds with control. For example, if someone criticizes you, your ego may try to control the narrative. If someone grows or changes, your ego may feel abandoned and try to pull them back into who they used to be. If someone doesn't agree with your values, your ego may try to make them feel small to preserve your sense of being right. In this way, control becomes a way to protect identity, not just relationships. The ego would rather manage others than evolve itself. But true power is never about dominating someone else, it's about confronting your ego and choosing growth over pride. 6. Control in relationships: mistaking love for management. One of the most tragic places control shows up is in romantic relationships. We often mistake love for ownership. We believe that if we love someone, it gives us the right to shape how they live, who they become, and what they choose. But this is not love. That is fear wrapped in affection. Real love says, I care about you enough to let you be who you are even if it scares me. When control enters a relationship, freedom disappears. Growth is stunted. Resentment builds silently. Communication becomes guarded. And love begins to feel like a burden. Eventually, the relationship suffers not because love disappeared, but because control replaced trust. 7. The beginning of change: awareness before transformation. Understanding that control comes from fear, insecurity, or conditioning is not meant to shame you, it's meant to free you. Once you realize, I'm trying to control others because I'm afraid, or I'm doing this because I don't feel enough inside, you take your first step toward emotional maturity. Because awareness is the first step toward mastery. You cannot change what you don't see. And now that you see it, you can choose differently. Closing thoughts for this section. Controlling others may feel like protection, but it is actually self-abandonment. Every time you try to fix, force, or manipulate someone else's journey, you are abandoning your own. So, breathe. Step back. Look within. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What part of me needs healing? What would happen if I let go and trusted myself instead? This is where real growth begins. Not by reshaping others but by meeting yourself. Section 3. The cost of controlling others: emotional, relational, and spiritual. When we try to control others even with the best of intentions, we often don't realize how much we are sacrificing in return. Control might give us a brief sense of stability, but over time, it quietly erodes the very things we are trying to protect. Our peace of mind, our connection with others, our inner spiritual alignment. This section explores how control takes a toll on our emotions, our relationships, and our soul, and why letting go isn't weakness, but the most courageous thing we can do. 1. Emotional drain, the hidden anxiety behind control. Controlling others is emotionally exhausting. Why? Because it puts you in a constant state of emotional vigilance. You are always watching, analyzing, reacting, overthinking. Your nervous system becomes hyperactive, always scanning for signs that someone might step outside your expectations or disappoint you again. This creates a state of chronic anxiety. What if they do something I can't handle? Over responsibility, it's my job to keep everything under control. Mental fatigue, I can't relax unless everything and everyone is okay. This emotional burden is unsustainable. You may begin to feel drained, irritable, overwhelmed, emotionally numb, disconnected from your own needs. Instead of building peace, control becomes the thief of it. Eventually, you burn out not because people are too much but because you've made yourself emotionally responsible for others' lives instead of your own. 2. Relational damage, when control replaces connection. One of the greatest illusions of control is that it can preserve relationships. But in reality, it slowly destroys them. When you control others, you suppress their autonomy. You weaken trust. You silence honesty. You create power imbalances. You teach others to fear your reactions, not love your presence. Control turns love into a contract. I'll be okay as long as you do things my way. This creates resentment in the other person and insecurity in you. Here's what happens in controlled relationships. Partners feel like they are walking on eggshells. Children grow up resenting the lack of freedom. Friends begin to distance themselves. Employees lose motivation and creativity. Romantic love turns into emotional suffocation. The result: people may stay around you physically, but emotionally, they begin to shut down or pull away. You may think, why don't they talk to me like they used to? But the truth is, control has replaced connection. 3. Spiritual misalignment, losing faith in life and yourself. Beyond the emotional and relational costs, control carries a spiritual consequence. It disconnects you from the deeper truth of life. Spiritual growth requires surrender, trust, letting go, faith in something beyond yourself. But control is the opposite of faith. It says, life can't be trusted. People can't be trusted. I must do everything myself. This mindset blocks you from receiving divine wisdom, spiritual peace, and intuitive guidance. It keeps you stuck in the illusion of separation, believing you are alone in a chaotic world, instead of being supported by a greater intelligence. When you're in control mode, you lose access to your inner wisdom, the natural flow of life, the miracles of the unknown, the presence of now. Control turns your life into a tight fist. But faith opens your hands and says, I don't have to force anything. I am safe in surrender. Spiritually, releasing control is an act of devotion to yourself, to love, to the unfolding of life itself. For loss of authenticity, becoming someone you're not. When you try to control others, you're also indirectly controlling yourself, your emotions, your voice, your identity. You may begin to betray your own authenticity in the process. Examples. You avoid deep conversations to avoid conflict. You smile when you want to cry. You agree with others just to keep them close. You suppress your needs to keep others from pulling away. All of this comes at a cost. You lose yourself. You begin to play roles, wear masks, and perform emotional labor that disconnects you from your truth. Control becomes not just a way to manage others, but a way to escape your own raw emotions. But your soul doesn't want a perfect life, it wants a real one. And control doesn't give you realness. It gives you artificial peace at the expense of your wholeness. 5. Overthinking, obsessiveness, and emotional distress. Control and overthinking go hand in hand. The more you try to control, the more your mind becomes consumed by what ifs. What if they change? What if I lose them? What if things fall apart? This mental loop creates obsessive patterns. You might constantly reread messages, revisit old conversations, check their social media, replay arguments in your head. These behaviors aren't about love. They are about trying to manage emotional uncertainty through mental obsession. But this obsession doesn't soothe you, it intensifies your suffering. The more you think, the less you trust. The more you analyze, the more anxious you feel. The more you force, the more things break. The cost: your mental health, your peace, your clarity, your ability to be present. 6. Control delays the inevitable, it never prevents it. Here's one of the hardest truths: control doesn't protect you from pain. It only delays it. If someone is going to leave you, they will, whether you control them or not. If something is meant to change, it will, no matter how hard you resist. You can't stop life from unfolding. You can only choose how you move through it, with fear or with faith. Ironically, the more we try to control things, the more pain we attract. We hold on too tightly, and what we fear happens anyway, but now we're also exhausted, angry, and ashamed. Control is not prevention. It's postponement. And what you postpone will return louder, stronger, and more painful until you learn the lesson: let go or be dragged. Final reflections: control is too expensive. So let us ask, what are we really gaining by trying to control others? Are we more loved or just more feared? Are we more at peace or constantly anxious? Are we growing or stuck in emotional cycles? The cost of control is too high. It takes your joy. It steals your relationships. It distances you from yourself. It robs you of peace, trust, and spiritual alignment. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring for yourself first by choosing freedom over fear. Section 4. What happens when you finally let go of the need to control others? Letting go of control is not giving up, it is growing up. It's a sacred shift from fear to faith, from force to flow, from anxiety to alignment. When you stop trying to manage people, outcomes, and emotions that aren't yours to carry, something miraculous begins to happen. This section is about the inner and outer transformations you experience once you release the weight of controlling others. 1. You finally breathe freely. The very moment you surrender the need to control others, your soul takes a deep breath, maybe for the first time in years. Suddenly, there is space in your mind. There is silence in your heart. There is ease in your body. You realize, I don't have to monitor every move, predict every response, or carry everyone's weight on my shoulders. You stop micromanaging life. You start experiencing it. Your nervous system calms. Your breath deepens. You begin to feel alive again, not as a puppet master, but as a conscious being free to live her truth. 2. Your relationships begin to heal. Something amazing happens when you release control. People start coming closer to you, not out of fear, but out of love. Because now, you're more open than reactive. More present than judgmental. More trusting than suspicious. More calm than controlling. This safety allows others to be themselves, and that's when true connection begins. Controlled relationships feel like cages. But when you let go of control, the dynamic shifts to mutual respect, not manipulation. People feel safe to express. Safe to be vulnerable. Safe to be honest. Safe to love you back freely, not conditionally. That's real love. And you've created the space for it. 3. You reconnect with yourself. Letting go of controlling others brings you back to you. You realize how much of your energy was scattered into other people's choices, emotions, and behaviors. When you stop trying to fix or manage everyone else, your energy returns home to your own body, mind, and heart. You become more aware of your own needs. More present in your own journey. More connected to your intuition. More aligned with your authentic voice. And with this reconnection, something powerful awakens. You are not here to control life. You are here to experience it fully in all its messiness, magic, and meaning. 4. Life begins to flow. Control is like swimming upstream. Letting go is like floating, trusting that the river of life knows where it's going. When you release control, solutions appear without force. Right people enter your life naturally. Opportunities align without obsession. Life unfolds with less resistance. You stop fighting what is. You start cooperating with the deeper intelligence of life, whether you call it God, the universe, divine timing, or fate. This is where real power lives, not in domination, but in harmony with the moment. 5. You step into emotional maturity. True maturity is not about being unshakable. It's about knowing what is yours to carry and what is not. Letting go of control teaches you. Boundaries are love. Detachment is strength. Self-regulation is power. Acceptance is wisdom. Instead of reacting to every emotion, you respond with awareness. Instead of forcing others to change, you ask, what do I need to shift within me? You stop managing people. You start managing your energy. That's the beginning of emotional sovereignty. 6. Your energy returns, and it's powerful. Control drains you. Letting go restores your fire. When your spirit is no longer tangled in the threads of others' lives, your inner power rises. You now have the emotional bandwidth to create with passion, heal deeply, love freely, focus clearly, grow spiritually, live courageously. You no longer need to grip. You simply stand in your truth, and let life respond. This is not weakness. This is radiant feminine strength, soft yet unshakable, surrendered yet sovereign. 7. You inspire, rather than intimidate. When you stop trying to control others, people begin to feel safe in your energy and they notice the change. They see that you no longer overreact. You hold space instead of issuing commands. You speak from clarity, not control. You lead through your presence, not pressure. This makes you a light in people's lives. Not because you fix them but because your peace reminds them what's possible. You become a peaceful mother, a graceful friend, a healing partner, a grounded mentor, a spiritual mirror for others. You no longer force people to change. Your freedom becomes the inspiration that invites them to rise. Final reflection, the gift of letting go. Here is the divine truth: what you try to control, you often lose. What you let go of, you often heal. Control is fear disguised as responsibility. Letting go is faith dressed in wisdom. You don't need to be the puppet master anymore. You are not here to bend others into your shape, you are here to bloom into your own wholeness. So today, ask yourself, what am I trying to control? Why do I feel unsafe without it? What might happen if I chose trust instead? And then take the most powerful step of all, release what is not yours. Reclaim your energy. Rise into your own light. Section 5. How to practice letting go of control daily. Real tools. Emotional shifts. Spiritual wisdom. Letting go isn't a one-time act. It's a daily practice, like watering a seed you want to see grow. This section is your practical guide. These tools, reflections, and emotional shifts will help you move from control to calm, from fear to freedom, from force to feminine flow. Let's walk through it step by step. 1. Daily journaling prompts to regain inner clarity. The first key to letting go is self-awareness. Use these prompts in your journal to untangle the hidden control patterns and return to your truth. What am I trying to control today and why? What fear is hiding underneath my need to control? What would happen if I trusted the process today? Where can I allow people to be themselves, without judgment? What's one thing I can release from my emotional grip today? Tip: journal in the early morning or before bed. Let it be a sacred space of honesty and emotional release. 2. Practice the power of the pause. Before reacting, pause. That short moment between someone's behavior and your reaction holds your power. Here's how to do it. Someone says or does something triggering. Your old pattern wants to control, fix, or force a change. But you pause for just 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, is this mine to control, or theirs to carry? Then respond from wisdom, not fear. This sacred pause rewires your nervous system. It teaches you to live from presence, not panic. 3. Stop fixing others emotionally. Your job is not to make others feel better. Solve everyone's discomfort. Prevent all emotional storms. Be the emotional center of everyone's life. When you catch yourself over-explaining, over-comforting, over-apologizing, pause and ask, am I doing this because they truly need support, or because I feel uncomfortable with their feelings? You're not here to emotionally manage others. You're here to hold space, not control outcomes. Let others have their process. Let them fall. Let them grow. Let them rise. Just like you did in your own divine timing. 4. Set clear, compassionate boundaries. Sometimes, we control people out of fear they'll hurt us. But what we really need is not control, it's boundaries. Boundaries are how we protect our energy without needing to control others. Examples. I choose not to continue this conversation when it becomes disrespectful. I love you, but I won't participate in this dynamic anymore. I'm not available to fix this for you, but I trust you'll figure it out. You don't need to fight, yell, or beg. You simply honor yourself and let others take responsibility for themselves. That's power. That's peace. 5. Start a surrender practice, even just 5 minutes a day. Surrender isn't weakness. It's a spiritual strength, a way of reminding yourself that you are not alone in this universe. Try this, the 5-minute daily surrender ritual. Sit quietly, close your eyes. Place your hand over your heart. Say, I let go of what I cannot control. I trust that what's mine will come. I return to peace. I return to presence. I return to me. Breathe deeply. Feel the tension melt. Do this every morning or every night to anchor your nervous system in peace. 6. Speak your truth, then release the outcome. Sometimes we think that letting go means staying silent. It doesn't. You can speak up without attaching to the result. For example, I feel hurt when I'm spoken to that way. I need respect in our relationship. This is how I see things, and I honor if you see it differently. I'm choosing this path for myself. I understand if it's not what you would choose. Say what needs to be said. Then detach. Let go of needing to be understood, praised, or agreed with. Your job is truth. Theirs is response. Don't cross wires. 7. Let go of old identities. Many control patterns come from childhood or trauma identities you adopted to feel safe, accepted, or loved. Ask yourself, did I become a fixer to survive emotionally? Did I learn to control others to avoid being abandoned? Did I think being perfect meant being loved? Now you're safe. Now you're grown. Now you get to choose, who am I when I stop trying to manage everything around me? That version of you, the healed version, is the one who leads with softness and strength. She trusts. She surrenders. She flows. And she's already inside you, waiting to rise. Final takeaway, from control to conscious power. Here's the truth you've been seeking, Illyra: you never needed to control others. You only needed to come home to yourself. Letting go doesn't mean being passive. It means being powerfully aligned with your values, energy, and truth while allowing others to live theirs. So, when you feel the old urge to grip, fix, or dominate, whisper this to your soul: I choose peace over pressure. I choose trust over tension. I choose to control myself, not others. And then, breathe. Let life flow. Let yourself glow. You are enough without holding the reins of the world. Section 6. The emotional cost of controlling others. What it steals from your life, peace, and relationships. We rarely stop to ask, what is the price I'm paying by trying to control others? The truth is, controlling people or outcomes doesn't make you powerful. It makes you emotionally exhausted, spiritually empty, and disconnected from your inner self. Here's what it costs. 1. It destroys emotional safety in relationships. People don't feel loved when they're being controlled. They feel manipulated, suffocated, or distrusted. You may think you're protecting the relationship, but actually, you're crushing its most sacred pillar, freedom. True love says, I trust you to be you, even if it's not what I expected. 2. It fuels anxiety and burnout. The more you try to control things beyond your reach, the more anxious and helpless you feel. You live in hypervigilance, always waiting for things to collapse. It becomes a prison. Control is an illusion that robs you of peace. And peace is the one thing your soul is desperately craving. 3. It blocks growth, yours and theirs. When you control others, you unknowingly rob them of their own life lessons. And when you control yourself too harshly, you block your own evolution. Control says, stay safe. Don't change. Don't risk. But life says, fall, learn, grow, rise. Section 7. The psychology behind the need to control. Why we do it and how to heal it from within. Control is not a personality trait, it's a protection mechanism. It often begins in childhood or trauma, when we learn that life was unpredictable, unsafe, or full of emotional chaos. Let's break it down. Where does it come from? Neglect or chaos in childhood. If your environment was unstable, you may have tried to control things to feel safe. You became the peacemaker, the perfectionist, or the planner not because it was your true nature, but because you were surviving. Emotional abandonment. If you felt emotionally unseen, you may have learned to manage others' feelings to be useful or lovable. Trauma. Trauma teaches the nervous system, if I'm not in control, something bad will happen. Healing teaches you, even if I'm not in control, I'm still safe. I'm still whole. What's the way out? Start identifying when you're reacting from fear instead of trust. Give your inner child what they never got, security without control. Create safe, structured inner boundaries and let the outer world unfold naturally. Healing control begins with self-compassion. Section 8, Spiritual Surrender vs. Emotional Suppression. What letting go really means. Many people misunderstand surrender. They think it means giving up, becoming weak, or being passive. But true spiritual surrender is the highest form of strength. It means, I trust life. I trust my path. I trust God, the universe, to carry me through. It is not the same as suppressing your emotions, silencing your voice, allowing people to walk over you, avoiding hard truths. Surrender is not silence. It is choosing truth over control. It is allowing without abandoning yourself. It is letting go of outcomes while standing in your values. When you spiritually surrender, you let life breathe through you. You move from tightness to trust. You become a vessel of peace, not a victim of fear. Section 9. Control in romantic relationships. The hidden dynamics that push love away. Control destroys love faster than dishonesty. Why? Because control masks itself as care, while suffocating the very person you're trying to hold close. Let's look at the hidden ways we control in romantic relationships. Emotional control looks like expecting your partner to always act a certain way, demanding emotional responses instead of allowing freedom, trying to fix, change, or heal your partner, using guilt or silence to influence behavior. Mental control looks like overanalyzing their words, texts, or moods, creating stories in your mind about what they should be doing, comparing them to your fantasy of what love should look like. What healthy, mature love says, I love you. I accept you. I trust your path and I honor mine. I release you from my expectations. I invite you into my truth. I am whole, even if you walk away. When control leaves, love breathes. You move from ownership to partnership. From fear to freedom. From force to flow. Section 10. You are not God, and that's a good thing. A gentle, soul-level reminder. You are powerful, yes. But you are not meant to carry the weight of the universe. You are not responsible for fixing everyone's path, healing all pain around you, making people behave better, controlling the outcomes of life. You are only responsible for your energy, your reactions, your truth, your alignment. When you stop trying to play God, you return to being a divine vessel. You listen more. You breathe deeper. You love without condition. And you finally realize, it was never my job to control life. It was only my job to live it with truth, trust, and grace. Closing reflection for you. You don't need to hold the world in your hands. You only need to hold your own heart with love. Let that be the final note in your current issue. Let your difficulties exhale. Let them feel seen and set free. The end.